Hello friends, this is another video of the immunology lecture series. In this video, we will discuss about innate immunity. So, it can be asked as a short note for the MBBS students, and also it can come as a long question and both short note for MBBS and MD biochemistry students. Also for biotechnology students, this can be asked as a theory question. So let's start the topic. What is innate immunity? The term innate, it means which is present since birth. So the term itself, it means the type of immunity which is present since birth comes under the innate immunity. Coming to the definition, the innate immunity consists of defense against infection that are ready for immediate action or quickly induced when a host is attacked by any pathogen. So either the immunity will be ready when the pathogen is present, or it will be quickly induced when the host is attacked by the pathogen. If immunity fulfills either of these criteria, it will come under the innate immunity. So types of innate immunity, two types of innate immunity are there. One is anatomical barrier, other is cellular response. The anatomical barrier, they will be either physical or chemical. The physical innate immunity, it comes under the, or it is the first line of defense, means the first encounter of any pathogen when it enters the body will be the physical innate immunity. Then the second line of defense will be the cellular responses. So what are the physical barriers? These are the first line of defense. It can be asked as a MCQ. In MCQ, it is asked first line of defense, second line of defense. The second line of defense will be the cellular responses of the innate immunity. Also, the acquired immunity poses the cellular responses, but the cellular response of the innate immunity comes under the second line of defense. And the physical barrier will include the skin, that is the epithelial layer of the skin, mucosal and glandular tissue surface connected to the body's openings. Now, these barriers prevent infection by blocking pathogen from entering the body. So, in detail, we will discuss about this in the later part of the video. Now, coming to the chemical barrier, it includes specialized soluble substances that possess antimicrobial activity plus acidic pH. The soluble substances which possess antimicrobial pH activity plus the acidic pH. So if the pathogen it evades both these barriers, that is the physical and chemical barriers, then the pathogen will be will encounter the cellular innate immunity. The cellular innate immunity will come into play, which constitute our second line of defense. That is why they are known as second line of defense. Now, what are the cellular innate immunity? These are triggered by the cell surface or intracellular receptors. Certain receptors are there in our body which will be either present on the cell surface or present inside the cells, which will recognize the conserved molecular components of the pathogens, not the changing molecular components which are usually seen by mutation. It will not be observed or it will not be recognized, but the conserved molecular components of the pathogen will be recognized. Now, the cellular innate immunity response, it includes the phagocytosis and the inflammation. So these local innate response, they are helpful in eliminating the pathogens, eliminating the dead or damaged cells. They also promote healing and helps to activate the adaptive immune responses. So these are the local responses which helps to in all these things. Now, this innate immunity is the most ancient form of defense against any pathogen and are found in all multicellular organisms. These are the most ancient form of defense. So it can also be asked as a question, MCQ. Now, coming to the physical innate immunity or the anatomical barrier in detail, these are the various sites and these are their immunity mechanism. First, the skin, it possesses antimicrobial peptides and the fatty acids which are present in the sebum. Mouth and upper alimentary canal, the various enzymes, antimicrobial peptides. Sweeping of surface by directional flow towards the stomach. Then in stomach there will be the low pH, digestive enzymes, bile salts, antimicrobial peptides and fluid flow towards the intestine. Small intestine, the various digestive enzymes, antimicrobial peptides, fluid flow towards the large intestine. Means when any pathogen enters through the mouth, they will be swept towards the lower part of the intestine or the GI tract and finally will be eliminated through the feces. In the large intestine, the various intestinal flora and the fluid or feces, they are expelled from the rectum. Then coming this is all about GIT. Then our respiratory tract, coughing, sneezing, alveolar macrophages, cilia of lining the respiratory tract. So these are the everyday mechanism which comes into play. Uh, for the coughing, sneezing, these are also our defense mechanism which tries to remove any foreign substances which enters our respiratory tract and causes irritation. Then in the urogenital tract, flushing by the urine and mucus and the low pH. Salivary, lacrimal and mammary glands, flushing by the secretion and mucus. Now coming to the epithelial barriers. This can be asked as a question, so you can take a screenshot to prepare notes of this if required. If you write this much for the innate immunity, it will be sufficient. Then coming to the epithelial barrier, the epidermis, the epithelium, it consists of epidermis and dermis. The epidermis consists of several tiers of tightly packed epithelial cells, and the outer layer is made of dead cells filled with a waterproofing protein called keratin. The dermis, it is composed of connective tissue, contains blood vessels, hair follicles, sebaceous glands, sweat glands. Some organisms have evolved ways to evade this defense of the epithelial barriers. For example, the influenza virus, which firmly attached to the cells in the mucous membrane of the respiratory tract. Then Neisseria gonorrhoeae, it also binds to the mucous membrane of the urogenital tract tightly, which cannot be removed by the physical barrier. Now coming to the chemical innate immunity or chemical barrier, they will be either various proteins or they will be some peptides. The proteins will be lysozyme, lactoferrin, secretory leukocyte protease inhibitor. The lysozyme, it will be tear, lysozyme present in the tear, saliva, respiratory tract. They causes cleavage of the glycosidic bond of the peptidoglycan in cell wall of bacteria, and they cause lysis of the cell. Then the lactoferrin, which is present in the milk and intestinal mucus, it binds and sequesters iron, limit the growth of bacteria and fungi. These are their antimicrobial activities. Also disrupt the microbial membrane and limit infectivity of some virus. Means they have antiviral property also. Secretory leukocyte protease inhibitor, present in intestine, respiratory tract, urogenital tract, blocks epithelium, blocks the epithelial infection by bacteria, fungi, and virus. So it will be either lysozyme, lactoferrin, secretory leukocyte protease inhibitor. Then another protein will be S100 protein, surfactant protein, SPA, SPD. The S100 protein are of two types, psoriasin and cal protein, uh, present in the tear, saliva, intestine, urogenital tract. The psoriasin, it disrupts the membrane. Cal protein binds and sequesters divalent cation, zinc and magnesium. So the psoriasin, it is important or very potent against E. coli. That is why it is seen that E. coli, which is a very common infection, means if we do not maintain proper hygiene, if hygiene is not maintained, from the feces it can pass to our fingers and enter again into our mouth. But due to the presence of psoriasin, we are usually protected from E. coli infection. And surfactant protein SPA, SPD, which is present in the respiratory tract, function is, or the antimicrobial activity is by phagocytosis. So these are the various proteins which are present in our uh, epithelium, which possess antimicrobial, antiviral properties and may cause also phagocytosis. Also coming to the various peptides, it will be defensin, alpha beta. Just remember the names to give example: defensive, alpha beta, cathelicidin, histatin, dermicidin. As the name indicates, dermicidin, it is present in the skin. Histatin, it is active against the fungal infection. It is active against fungal infection. So 5 proteins, 4 peptides. Remember this as an example. important points you can write. That is psoriasin, it is very potent against E. coli. Then lysozyme, lactoferrin, these are very common, usually known by every student. Now, the various antimicrobial peptides which we have just seen in this physical innate immunity, these are the these are the various proteins and peptides which are possessed by this skin and various respiratory tract. So the cellular innate responses we will discuss in another video. There will be it will be a detailed video of that, so I will make a separate video, otherwise the video will be very lengthy. If you are having any doubt, feel free to ask in the comment section, or any topic which you want to me to make, please suggest that also. I will try to prepare that video also. Thank you. Happy reading.